Welcome to Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. I'm a board-certified music therapist, author, and expert on how to use music to relieve stress fast. This podcast is sponsored by McConnell Music Therapy Services, Inc., where they believe in the power of music to transform people and communities. Based in Northern California, their board-certified music therapists support people of all ages and abilities within hospitals, schools, corporations, and communities using music experience to connect, express, and de-stress. Visit them at mcconnellmts.com or their Facebook page, McConnell Music Therapy. This episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold is also sponsored by Dr. Nisi, trainer and certifier of master and executive coaches, because she believes every person, every relationship, every business, and your finances should be extraordinary. Find out more about Dr. Nisi Moore and the Life Coaching Institute at www.drnisi.com. That's DRNEECIE.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. It's so great to be with you, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm super excited to introduce you to another extraordinary artist. Michael Whalen is a two-time Emmy Award-winning composer and music supervisor with 8 nominations, who has worked in advertising, television, film, and video games for over 30 years, including some of his best-known work being with The Oprah Winfrey Show and Good Morning America. Michael is also an internationally known recording artist with 32 solo and soundtrack recordings to his credit. Well known for his beautiful and thematic music, he performs when time allows. He has also produced and executive produced over 100 recordings for other artists. His work as an executive producer resulted in a Grammy nomination in 2000. Now, I should prepare you. Get ready, because Michael and I are both from New York, and Michael still lives there, so the pace and the volume of our conversation at times matches the speed and noise of life in New York. So strap in and enjoy this super fun, funny, and fascinatingly deep discussion about the purpose of music and creativity, and I'll see you on the other side. Michael Whalen, thank you so much for joining us on Reduce Your Stress.
Thank you for having me. It's like, I'm feeling pretty good. Like,
What?
it's a Friday when we're recording this, but like, I don't have that much stress. It's interesting. I had an interesting morning, which I can share with you right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Got up early. I went to Yankee Stadium here in the Bronx,
Really?
which is where I am located. This is
Yes.
where my palatial little tiny room is. And I got my first vaccine shot.
Okay.
So I think I had 30 people ask me, "Are you okay?" So everyone's been like, "Are you good?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." No, they're like, no, really, "Are you good?" I'm like, no, really, I'm fine. Can I go? I just want to go. So, but it was cool doing it at the stadium though, because
That's super cool.
Yeah, I'm a baseball fanatic, and it was super well organized, super well put together.
Nice.
So, I mean, it's snowing again, but it's always snowing this year. So, so there we go. So, but all jokes aside, I'm super happy to be here.
That's great. That's great. Well, it's great to have you. Our mutual friend, Ryan Judd, introduced us. And Ryan and I are not only fellow music therapists, but East Coast kids who went to a little prep school in Connecticut. And I grew up with his brother, Peter. And so small world syndrome. And when I got into the space of doing relaxation music specifically, clinically, I didn't record any of it. I would just do it live with all my patients. And then I had a patient one day say, "Do you have this on CD?" This is going back a few years. And I said, "No." And she got really mad at me. And I was like, whoa. She goes, "I'm going to need you at 2 a.m. And where are you going to be?" But if I had your
in bed.
in bed,
Oh,
exactly.
sorry. There was a rhetorical question. Sorry, my bad. Sorry.
But yes,
Sleeping.
at that stage of my life, the answer was in bed, yes,
That's
and
right.
not at a club or getting in trouble or things maybe 10 years earlier I would have been doing. But the point was, she really impressed upon me the need to record specifically relaxation music for
Nice.
people to do just that. And I was just kind of, oh, I'm sorry. And it dawned on me that it's actually a service to people.
Yes.
And, for most of us, we start in the entertainment context of music. And so I think about entertaining people. Yeah. On stage, fans, autographs.
I love when people talk about, entertainment. Aren't we all entertainers? It's like, see, what I think is so cool is you're creating this whole distinction of being of service.
Mm,
And I don't know if entertainment and I guess you could be like Bob Hope and you go and you do like the USO tour and you're entertaining the guys on the front as a way of being of service. So everyone is, so like maybe like at a place like that, but this idea that we're creating an entertainment is so interesting to me, considering the 7 zillion messages I've gotten from people who are like, I have fallen asleep to your music. I have gotten married to your music. Someone died to your music. We've had babies to your music. We've made babies to your music. All right, everyone just calm down. So, and it's like this music becomes this super intimate part of people's lives. So this idea, this woman saying to you, hey, Tim, I need you at 2 a.m. without, being, weird or creepy or whatever.
right.
It's like, it's sort of like a whoopee. It's like, becomes a security blanket.
Yeah.
And there's people who have listened to my album from 2005, My Secret Heart, every single night for 16 years.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't even know how to process that.
I know.
It's like, you become that sort of ingrained in people's lives, and that whole going to bed thing. And it's like, that's super personal.
100%.
It's super personal. It's like you could be dating someone for months before they actually see you go to sleep.
Right.
It's
Good
like,
point.
it's one of these things where, it's all of that stuff and all that kind of weird stuff you do and all that stuff. One of the most beautiful and achingly sort of horrible things I ever did was on my Facebook group. And this is like 5 years ago. I asked people how they used my music to go to sleep, because everyone's like, I don't make sleep music. I'm not Liquid Mind. I'm not Stephen Halpern. I'm not one of these guys.
Right.
But a lot of people do, because they just like it.
Yep.
It's soothing to them, even though my intention is to actually create music to listen to, but they sleep to it. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I asked them, I said, how do you use my music to go to sleep? And lots of answers, and the thread went on for, I don't know, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, hundreds of answers and responses.
Wow.
And one of them was this woman who had recently lost her husband, and she couldn't sleep in their bed. So what she did was she would go to their TV room where they had his chair. He had this sort of like lazy boy type chair. And she would get in the chair and she'd put on my music and she'd cover herself with blankets, and that's how she went to sleep every night.
Wow.
And just like the details of that, and it's just like you get so in people's worlds, and I don't think I'll ever forget that, because it's not like, how do I say? That is like a super personal, super intimate thing, and in a way, by sharing this, she's thanking me.
Yes.
And I'm like, what I really hope is that you can figure a way to get all of your life back. This idea that your bedroom is now this sort of, I don't know, it's not a safe place, or you don't feel comfortable there, or whatever. It's like you want to feel 100% comfortable in all all the parts of your life.
Sure.
And you know, and if the music can help you that way, then I think we've done a real service for people.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. You start, you know, because, you know, you and I have talked before, and this idea of creating relaxing music.
Mm-hmm.
I find that if you tell people what to do with your music, they never do that. I mean, it's true. I mean, you talk to Ryan too, because Ryan makes this, you know, beautiful guitar music, and it's whatever. And, you know, we were laughing about it. I mixed his last record, and I've worked with Ryan. He's fabulous. New album. We should plug it for Ryan.
That's right.
He has a new
album.
That's right. But it's weird. It's like, you know, you and I could spend a couple of weeks and we could make a meditation record. We could say, okay, this music's for meditation. And someone within moments of the release of that recording will come back and be like, you know, I don't really use it for meditation. You know, it's really good to burp my baby or whatever. And all of a sudden it becomes like, so, you know, and we'll probably get to this in a minute, but one of my jobs is I run this small record company in California, even though I'm sitting in the Bronx. It's a weird time. And we don't talk about genres.
Yeah.
We don't talk about new age, and we don't talk about ambient music. We don't even really talk about wellness music. What we do is we have this thing called the 5 moons, and the 5 moons of Myndstream are sleep, relaxation, meditation, movement, and focus. And we sort of guide people towards stuff, but very often, you know, even if we make a really great sleep playlist or we make a really great new sleep album or whatever, someone's going to say, oh no, this is really, really good for this unpronounceable yoga type or whatever.
Right.
And you're like, okay, great. Yoga away, do your thing. I mean, so I think I sound like I'm joking, but I'm not. I think it's important that people are empowered to use the music however it turns them on.
Yes.
And the idea that you're going to create relaxation music, it's a suggestion. It's
there you go.
It's a
suggested
guide.
use.
Yeah, it's a suggested use. You know, it's a suggested tip. It's a suggested use.
That's right.
But but the other thing is that, you know, this field is blowing up. There's all kinds of things happening, and there's all kinds of people getting into this, and it's an exciting time because the entire world is locked in their houses, and they're using our music to help sort of mitigate what it is to be socially distanced. And I mean, I just had this experience, you know, just 2 hours ago, you know, getting my vaccination, and it was the first time I had stood in line with people in a year.
Wow.
And
what a thought.
It just occurred to me, like, is this okay? And, you know, and there's, you know, doctors and nurses and the National Guard and then people from Yankee Stadium and whatever. And you're like, is this okay? And all of a sudden I'm having this sort of like, sort of memory of what it is like, you know, standing in line to get on an airplane versus like, is this, you know, is because like I was struck by how much my worldview had changed.
Yes.
And I have heard from so many people who listen to my music that they're really struggling right now.
Yes.
There's people really struggling right now through this.
Yes, they are.
And, you know, I have chosen comedy as a way of getting through this.
Yep.
You know, as you have.
As we both have. Yeah.
But seriously, a lot of people are struggling through this, and they need something. It's like all my friends who are teachers. I talk to my friends from high school all the time. So like we just had a Zoom last night, and we had like 15 people on it, and it was really great. And,
right on.
And a lot of them, you know, are teachers or they're involved with education or whatever.
Right.
And some of them are in schools that are open. And they're all over the country. Some of them are in schools that are open, and some of them are not. And there's this whole thing about like how to love someone and not touch them.
Weird.
Like, you have an upset kid and you can't hug them or comfort them, or
Yeah, man. Totally.
what's the ramifications of that?
Yeah.
You got a 10-year-old who's just like having a meltdown because they're 10, not because there's anything particularly horrible happening.
Right.
And what are the ramifications of that? Can music help with that? Can music create a context that feels soothing and feels nurturing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think the person has to be open to that. I think they have to be open to the idea that music could show up that way.
Yes.
Versus they hear the first couple of notes, they'll go, "Wow, I am so comforted by this music right now. It's soothing me." And I think sometimes that these suggestions that we make with our music, I think, are really important for people.
Yeah.
And I think you got to drive the bus right up to the line where people talk about things like medicine music, or they talk about, my music will heal you. You got to be so careful with that stuff.
100%.
So I think a lot of it is people hear the music and then they put it into a context, and then they're going to take actions that help them. Is that the music healing them, or is that just creating a whole system where they're taking actions where things are moving forward?
Yeah, I think you've just touched on so many good points, and one, that when we create art, at the end of the day, the user is the one who determines how they use it and what they derive from it, and we can only have intention, and that's about where it ends, right? I remember in high school, one of my best friends, we were both metalheads, and he would go to sleep.
You don't have any hair. You can't listen to metal. Just joking.
Yeah, exactly. No, and you know what's funny?
I'm losing my hair.
Well, mine would look like that if I had the courage to let it grow, but I don't, so I just shave it. But Michael has a 5 head, for those of you who are listening. Well, everyone's listening to this as a podcast right now, so they have no idea what we're talking about. But the point being, my friend Alan would go to sleep listening to Metallica Ride the Lightning.
Wow.
And
how do you do that?
Right? But that was so fascinating because I spent the night at his house and I was like, dude, what? I can't go to sleep. He knocked out. And I was fascinated by that experience. Like, you fall asleep listening to Ride the Lightning. That is not what Metallica was going for. I'm sure of it. But at the end of the day, there's music that's in us. We want to get it out. And then we give it out and we give it away. Essentially, I turn it over to you, right? The moment that I release it, I say, I've done my part.
Yep.
Now you get to do yours and do with this as you see fit, and whatever that looks like for you and whatever derives meaning for you. So when my daughter passed away, we had Claire de Lune performed at her funeral, and we had a song called Quiet Night by Wayne Jones, who does a lot of relaxation music for Lifescapes back in the day.
Really, and he's real good.
He's real good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had him on the podcast to talk about that. And he was so moved because I reached out to him and said, we'd like to have this pianist from my conservatory perform Quiet Night. And he's like, we don't have a score for it. We wrote it in the studio however many years ago, but I'll tell you what, we'll score it for you. So he wrote it out. And then my accompanist from college, she performed it. It's like the one and only time this piece of music's ever been performed live. Wow. And he said that was such an impactful experience for him as the artist, because never had he envisioned, of course, when he was working on that record, that this particular track would be used in this particular way at this particular time in this particular place in the country, right? And that's the beauty of when we record music and we put it out. It goes out into the ether, and the ripples in the pond extend far beyond our sight line and our horizon. And that's really the privilege, right? And it's not a responsibility. Like, I don't want to make it a should for any artist, but it's what's possible. Totally. And I think that's what's exciting about it, right? And I've had very similar experiences with my own music where people will post, pictures of their kids falling asleep to my track and I'm like, there was a time in my life where I wanted my audience on their feet jumping. And now there's a time in my life where I really love it that my audience is flat on their back and they're falling. Like if my music puts you to sleep, it's a compliment to me at this stage.
I've done, relaxation, meditation concerts. I did a sleep concert.
No way.
Not exactly the way like Max Richter did. Max Richter, who's a wonderful composer, did a concert here in New York. I think he also did in LA, where he had 200 people and beds, and they played They did, and he played for 8 hours, like all
That's
night.
Fascinating.
He played all night. It was like, and the tickets were like $300 a piece, and because you get a bed,
right?
And it was. I know a couple of people who went, and they said it was like the coolest, weirdest slumber party ever. Certainly something that would not happen now in the age of COVID.
Yeah.
But really, really interesting. And I did a thing where I had just people relax, and I had 2 friends of mine who were like yoga people go and work with people so people could get into like comfortable positions, and we had like big, poofy blankets for people and whatever. Yeah. And people really dug it.
Yeah.
And and I played for 2 hours straight, and we just ambiented it out, and we had really cool lighting and the whole thing.
Nice.
And I agree with you. I mean, yes, there was a point in my life where I wanted to be, a rock star, prog guy.
Yeah.
But there is something about giving people an experience they can take with them, where it's not about me. The more I make music that's about me, the smaller it is. The more I make music that is like that beautiful distinction you started with about being of service for people, then it can be sort of like universally large.
Yeah, well
because
said.
Because it's not, it can't, I don't want to say can't. It's like could, should.
Right, sure.
I get you. Those 3 terrible words.
Yeah, totally.
But I think it's important for artists who want to go into this to be thinking about intention, but the word that I would use is, what is your commitment? What are you actually committed to as an artist of being of service to your listeners? So, because I feel that we are, and I understand that every year or age is like the worst age that human beings have ever lived through, and then 150 years from now someone will put this all in context. But we are in a particularly troubling intersection with so much stuff coming together, like the whole COVID and the climate change and all this stuff that's going on. I mean, the poor people in Texas right now, what they're dealing with,
right?
That's climate change, guys.
Right, exactly.
Like so, in case anyone's wondering, like what it looked like, it's that there it is.
It's when Texas freezes.
It's when Texas freezes. It's not when I get snow in New York. This is the 8th snowstorm we've had this year. We're supposed to get those. So, but I think the commitment that you have as an artist is the thing that people will become the most responsive to. So my commitment as an artist is always to create something that is without direction. It has intention to it, but it doesn't have a direction to it. So like if I'm going to do an album like the one I did last year is like Sacred Spaces, everyone's like, so is this a relaxation record or like a meditation record? I mean, I did so many interviews about it, and I was like, it's none of those things. It's like whatever you want to do with it.
Yes.
And my commitment is to empower you to do whatever you want to it. You want to drive to it? Great. You want to fall asleep to it? Great. And I don't care if someone says you're making lifestyle music. I'm like, great. If it fits into someone's life, I think that's fabulous. Like, I think there was a long period of time when someone would say, well, Jim, you're making lifestyle music. And people would be like, I don't think that's bad. I
No.
think I think that if you can actually create music that can actually find a place in someone's life, I think that's incredibly beautiful. I think that's and by the way, it's also incredibly hard.
Mm,
I mean, we are getting doused like a fire hose with new music constantly.
yep.
So for people to hold on to something that's really important to them and it happens to be your music is an incredible privilege.
It is. It really is. And I think that when you say that lifestyle music, I love that phrase because people fit music into their lifestyle anyway.
Yeah.
They're shoehorning music. That's what a playlist is. That's what a mixtape was. That's what a blank CD was. We were curating what was out there in order to dot dot dot, right? And fascinating. If I'm speaking at conferences, I'll ask people, why do you build playlists other than greatest hits? Like, what's the function for you? How does it help serve you? And they come up with, kind of standard utility. So like music to exercise, music to work, music to sleep, music to commute, music to road trip, music for romance, music for broken hearts to heal, right? But the most important thing is that none of those playlists are identical.
Right.
Right. So the function in their life, they have these chapters of their lives that they're trying to execute or go through and perform as a human. They're adulting, and adulting is hard. And they've noticed music really helps. They're like, wow, this is a really good tool in my toolkit for helping me achieve whatever it is I'm trying to do. And my joke is that's why God invented headphones, because I can curate the music that I need for me for this purpose.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about it. We don't have to fight over the dial like in the car back in the day. Right. Now, having said all that, what really attracted me to you and what you're doing right now is the work you're doing with Myndstream, and how Myndstream has created a platform where there is a little bit of suggestion around purpose, right?
Sure.
And this is what I'm really interested in, because I find people are already doing this anyway on their own.
Totally.
And what you're doing is you're facilitating that and making it easier for them. And you're saying, we've done the work for you. We've thought about this. We've put a lot of time and resources into this. Almost like, trusting someone else's Spotify playlist, but you don't know their tastes, right? But you're like, here, we're in a whole ecosystem that's specifically and consciously dedicated to curating an experience for you to help you survive.
Yeah.
And right
Totally.
now we need that because we are running out of adrenaline, and we need tools to reset our nervous system so we don't get sick, so we don't burn out, and we don't check out, right? So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about like when you were exposed to Myndstream, like what was it about it that you were just like, oh, this is cool. Like I'm in, like sign me up.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I helped launch Myndstream. So the company that owns Myndstream is a
Mm-hmm.
company called the Cutting Edge Group, which they've been around Hollywood and the music business for 30 years, and they do
Okay.
a lot of work with film and TV. And they bought Real Music, which was a very tried and true new age label. I'm going to use the term new age one last time. and and they said, okay, this is great that we have this and this long legacy and these artists and things, but we want to create a new paradigm for this. We want to create, and it's exactly what you said. It's like, I think in the early days of Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon, I think there was, so for sort of lack of a better way of looking at it, playlisting the way you and I would have made a mixtape back in the day. Now you can look at playlisting and almost apply it to your daily or weekly or monthly schedule. You can literally say, okay, in this block of time, I'm going to use this playlist. It's amazing.
Yep.
Because now it's music that helps you pass the time. It's music that creates the context. It's music that helps inspire you or relax you or soothe you, or basically sort of you remind yourself that you're sort of like, in the world, or take yourself out of the world,
Yes.
and
Yes.
have a moment to meditate or escape or
Yes.
clear yourself. Or if you're working and you want something to focus to, um, which is sort of my current area of sort of obsession right now, this whole idea of creating focus music that's
Mm.
not just like dumb, like sort of drones or whatever. This
Right.
idea that something, it could have a little life to it. It could have like even like a little sex to it. It could have a little
Yeah.
something to it.
Yep.
But it's one of these things where you hear it and then
Right.
you can literally like just sort of block it out. But it
Yeah.
also helps sort of wash out everything else around you.
Totally.
So this lo-fi thing, the Chilled Cow and all these guys who've come into this space and done so well with it, I'm like, okay, how do we evolve this idea?
Right.
But what we're doing at Myndstream is taking the idea that people already have of lifestyle and how I'm going to use this music in your schedule and all this stuff, and bringing to bear the fact that we also have some really incredible artists.
Mm.
There is a little bit of a trend that troubles me slightly, that lifestyle music or mindful music is something like going to be like nameless artists, and it's just going to be wallpaper. That worries me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They asked me to run Myndstream, even though I'm an artist, because being of service to the artists, facilitating artists, sometimes kicking artists' butts and doing stuff is something that is really, really important. And we want our music to have a personality to it. We want our music to sound different. We want our music to be pushing the walls out. And I think the fact that we don't deal with genre like New Age. Okay, I said it one more time. Like New Age, because the problem is that if you're doing New Age the way it was done like in the 80s, now you're looking over your shoulder going, is this right? It's sort of like what happens to my friends who play classical music. It's like they're constantly being haunted by the ghosts of Beethoven and Bach and Mozart and whatever. It's like, guys.
No
like,
freedom.
No freedom, no authenticity, no ability to kind of like step in there and say, what's your voice? I mean, Glenn Gould like destroyed classical music because he was like, I don't care how anyone has played this music in the past. Right. This is how I'm playing this music. And that was like this enormous like atomic bomb in classical music. To me, that's day one of being an artist.
Totally.
Like, I mean, like, I'm sorry. What what is the huge revelation here? Oh, wait, I'm going to go be an individual. I don't even want to, I don't want to talk to you if you're not an individual. Like, give me a break. It's like, because I get pitched music constantly.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me guess. All the time.
All the time. And
only
like,
all the time.
I've got a demo. I've got a thing. It's like, and I have literally now apologized to all of my favorite A&R people, because now that I'm an A&R guy, I'm like, this is a nightmare, because you have people coming out of the walls with stuff and whatever, and they're all dying to pitch you like the next best thing. Yeah. And I'm like, great. Is it different? Is it unique? Has this person created their own voice? Yeah. Something where I can point to it and go, yep. Like, I mean, we'll go back to our friend Ryan. I mean, one of the reasons why I think Ryan is great is that you think about the 4 zillion people who have played acoustic guitar. When you listen to Ryan's music, no one sounds like him. And the sound is in his hands. Yes. Like, that is so rare. And and he has this beautiful melodic sense and blah blah blah, but that's what really sets him apart from some people who have nice technique and stuff, but they don't have a voice. Yeah. So I think it's a tricky time, because yes, being of service to, the listener and all that is important. But I also think you want to be feeding the artists, and you want to be saying to them, okay, guys, where do you want to go with this? So by taking away genre and taking away a lot of those strictures and rules has totally freed the artists that we have.
Yeah.
They love this idea, because now we're having a conversation called, oh, okay, so your intention is to make a relaxation thing. Great. How do you want to do that? And they're like, well, what do you mean? Isn't there a formula for doing this? I'm like, nope, blank sheet of paper. And and you and I talked about this before, but my favorite sort of story about this is you got to go back to Bach and the Goldberg variations. So Mr. Goldberg asked for a piece to be written because he had insomnia. And so basically it was music for him to relax to, maybe fall asleep to in the middle of the night. And he had a guy who was his sort of like in-house, piano guy. He was so wealthy, he had a guy. So Bach wrote pieces that could be played at 2:30 in the morning and help him fall asleep.
Wow.
Bach had no template. He had nothing to create music that was all about function. 99% of what Bach created had, religious overtones, or was part of a service, or it was like, so he knew what the choreography of his music was going to be before it was done.
Right.
With this, he had no idea. So I go to my artists and say, hey guys, Bach did it. He took his vocabulary, he took his experience with a blank sheet of paper with an intention to relax a guy who could not sleep.
Yep.
Go. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
You can use any instrument you want. You can go anywhere you want. You can do anything you want. You can use any style. Knock yourself out. You want to do Ride the Lightning and create like, a heavy metal masterpiece, and such a great drum sound on that song. Okay, it's fine. But long story short, what they're coming back with is not anything like what you would have called New Age. And that just makes me so happy. It makes me so happy that they're pulling out different colors, and then they're doing stuff, and they're taking chances. And because I do think that there is a real thing going on in pop music and in hip hop where there, and I know this has been going on for a while, and I know a lightning bolt's going to come kill me when I say this to you, but it's like once you make music into a commodity, it loses its ability to innovate. It loses its ability to shock. It loses its ability to enthrall you or inspire you. Because now you're making something with like, that is a contained lump.
Yes.
And you've designed the lump to do what this lump is supposed to do, which, which is, okay, I'm going to go get a lot of streams for it.
Right.
And in pop music, it's weird. You have like a little bump, it does really well for a second, and then it goes away.
Yep.
In our music, I want someone listening to this music for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
100%. Yep.
So I heard something. So I think that takes real inspiration from the artist. That takes a real commitment to something. I think that takes real courage to create something that's going to be different. And it takes the support of a company like Myndstream to say, yeah, we don't want you to do what you did before. We're not making widgets. We're not making pop lumps. I think I just coined a phrase here.
Pop lumps.
And I think that I want to come away from this going, yeah, I've never heard anything like this before. And it's challenging, I mean, you're very, very accomplished guy. It's very hard to sit down and go, wow, I'm going to try to do something that's never been done before. And you need to know what the history is before you can even sit down and do that.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, am I really innovating, or I'm really just chasing the tail of somebody who was doing stuff 20, 30, or 40, maybe even 50 years ago.
Yeah, it's such a challenge to try to be almost willfully ignorant and informed at the same time. How do you strike that balance, right?
When I first came to Myndstream, I made a playlist with no names. It was a nameless playlist, and I sent it to my bosses, and I said, "Hey guys, what do you think?" They're like, "Wow, this is amazing. What is this?" And I'm like, "I don't know. What do you think it is?" They're like, "Oh, this is something new." And I'm like, "No, this is music that was made in the mid '70s.
No way.
Steve Hillage, Brian Eno, just early
Yep.
Tangerine Dream,
Yep.
like
Pioneers.
Pioneers, and the reason why this music has been so influential is because they didn't have a playbook. They didn't have they didn't have a formula.
Yeah.
They literally said, okay, here's the intention. Like Brian Eno said, here's the intention. And and I would say that Brian is probably the father, maybe grandfather, of what you and I would call functional music.
Yeah.
Because like when he comes out in 1977 and he creates music for airports, everyone's like, so what you're saying exactly is you're creating music that's just supposed to be played in an airport? Yes and no. He's talking about what music can be played in a public space and create an environment.
Yeah.
Like he's all about creating an emotional environment.
Yep.
And they did play his music. I think it was in Kansas City. It was in one of those kinds of places. Not a big place like Chicago, but I think it was like Kansas City or one of these places. And they played that album for like 10 years.
Wow.
Because it was one of these things where it became like a social experiment. Like what is this going to do? Is this going to help chill people out? Is this going to create like, all the stuff that you and I were just talking about, a couple of minutes ago? Is it going to help soothe like these passengers who are,
absolutely,
like,
the misery index,
zooming through the terminals, and and what was really interesting was, musicians were gleaning onto, wow, look what he's doing with processing. Wow, listen to those sounds, listen to this, listen to that. But I think it was much more important, like what the listeners, because my older brother was the first person to turn me on to Eno and Steve Hillage and all these guys. And, for my brother, it was a way of escaping. It was a way of him escaping from being, the awkward teenager, and he could lose himself in that music.
That's it. That's it. And I think that's one of the gifts of music. It's like this coin that has these two sides where it can, you use music to be in the moment, and then you turn around and you use music to escape the moment. And both are valid at different times for different reasons. And as human beings, sometimes we're not present and we need to be. And sometimes we need a break. And that's, we'll date ourselves here by saying, Calgon, take me away, right? There was a reason why that commercial was so successful when we were kids. For all the moms out there, it was perfect advertising, because it was like, sometimes you just need to escape, and I need music to help me do that. Where's the exit? Let's go. And the exit is in my headphones. And what's so funny, right? Like the last thing I want to just touch on is this idea of being socially isolated in COVID, but yet one of the functions of music, and it's one of the like core 5 functions that I talk about all the time, is that music allows us to connect with something outside of ourselves that's safe.
Yes.
And a teenager, or an adult, but a teenager particularly, can be in their room by themselves, feeling more connected than down in their living room with their parents. Because the music just accepts them, allows them to do what they want with the music, allows them to play it, allows them to stop it, allows them to turn it up, doesn't stop if they can't keep the beat or remember the lyric or hit the note. It's just totally accepting whatever feelings they're having, whatever thoughts they're having. It's just there, of service to that person in that moment. And I think that's just one of the great gifts that we get to give our brothers and sisters on this rock when we have the courage to hit publish.
Yeah, I agree 1,000% with what you're saying. I mean, one of the things that I say to the artists, and I've been saying a lot in the last year, is the most important thing to people in this circumstance are 2 things: safety and security.
100%.
and they're not the same. So there's
Mm,
personal safety, like
right.
I hope I don't get the virus. And then there's security of knowing that the house is not going to collapse and we have enough food and water and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that you don't have to worry about the basic stuff and that like the basic sort of structure of your life is okay.
Yep.
And you say, okay, well, well, that sounds heavy. How does this like apply to music? Easy. Your job as an artist is to fit into that paradigm. Like, are you now making music that's essential in a world where safety and security are the two most important things?
Wow.
Or are you writing something that's just like meaningless and stupid and like, we probably shouldn't put it out.
Right.
And so for me, that's the bar.
Wow. It's
Because
great.
it's like, are you creating something that's really essential? Or are you creating something that is a forgettable and a pop lump or whatever?
Right. Right.
And I think that the key here for artists is to create something that is cherished by the people who listen to it.
Yeah.
That's hard, man. That is
Yep.
that's tough. And I think it starts with the person who creates it. Do you have a real emotional connection with this music? And that's been tough because I've been putting it to the artists, and I would say by and large they're responding really, really well. But that's a tough bar to jump over. That's a tough bar,
Yeah.
And you can hear it immediately. Brian knows, like all of our friends know. You can hear immediately, like whether the music you're listening to has a real soul.
Yeah.
Like if there's a real beating heart to it,
Yeah.
immediately. Or
Yeah.
is this just a guy who's just like messing around with the synthesizer?
Right.
So it's like, so to me, like that's the key. I think what COVID has done, it has, stripped all the varnish off of what's happening, and getting back to basics is key. Where does our music fit into that? Because if you're not working in that level, then why is someone going to bother when they are thinking about their personal safety?
Yep. Yeah. No, it's great. I think about pop as kind of like fast food, like empty carbs. You need a lot of it. It's not very nourishing. And I think like you tire of empty music really quickly as a listener, and then you need more. So then you got to go out and search more, and then you got to go through the learning curve. Do I like this music? Do I not like this music? Do I turn on? Is this a waste of my time? And when you make like nutrient rich music, to use the analogy, my experience as a listener has been when I find nutrient rich music, I am satiated by that music for years.
Oh yeah.
Years, right? And I think if you talk to any Rush fan,
Yeah.
for example, they will tell you, I have been satiated by Rush for decades. And you're like, yeah, that makes sense to me, because when you find music that's got that right blend of heart, soul, and there's something to chew on. And I think you were talking about this a little bit earlier, and I really loved the idea where when you're writing music that's subtle and not overly complex, and yet there's just enough nutrient in it for the brain to kind of nibble on, right? Almost like a mantra, right? It's like it's just enough to engage the brain, but it's not overwhelming and it's not distracting. When you find that sweet spot, then ride that lightning. Hey.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I mean, what I'm thinking about right now is, we lost Chick Corea,
Yeah.
and it's been really interesting because, I've been talking to my kids who are in college and a bunch of other younger people, and they were like, I don't understand. I'm like, okay, so let's play a little game. So go to Google and just type in Chick Corea recordings and see what comes back. And you will be overwhelmed by almost 80 years of a recorded legacy, which is filled with passion and spirit and nutrient rich food because it's made with integrity.
Mm.
So, and this is, and before we finish up, we should probably just be careful with how we're using the word integrity, because
Always.
people go
Yep.
crazy.
Yep. Always
So,
worth redefining that word.
so
Good.
to me, integrity is about workability.
Mm.
It's about it's not moral.
Right.
It's
Yes.
not good to have integrity. It's not
Right.
bad to have integrity. It's about creating something that has real workability.
Yep.
And that means you do your homework. That means you do your preparation. That means that they're, like the fundamentals are done. Like, this is not a guy like getting drunk in the recording studio and just like laying some stuff down.
Yep.
Chick did his homework, and he really respected the writing process, to the nth degree. And he was a guy who dropped out of Juilliard because he was like, I don't really want to do this. And then, a year later, he's playing with Miles Davis, and then, the world blows up. So the bottom line is, here's a guy who was constantly reinventing himself, constantly taking on the next challenge, and always putting in the integrity. So for me, he's been a real inspiration for me to go and try out some different things. So like, there are a lot of people who will say, well, Michael, you do all these different things. What lane are you driving in? And it's like, okay, well, it depends on what I'm doing. So if it's like Sacred Spaces, sure. If it's like an ambient project, like, Karmic Dreams, which came out in September, sure. I have a jazz fusion record coming out in April, which has been on my bucket list for years. And I did it with Simon Phillips on drums and Tony Levin on bass and my friend Bob Magnuson on sax. And
how great is that?
And it was a blast. I mean, okay, this is going to sound weird, but one of the best things about COVID, and I know there's very few people who use this sentence, so I'm going to I just want to frame this very carefully. One of the best things about the whole pandemic is that everybody's home.
Yep.
Hey, I got something to do. You want to go play on this thing? I'll send you the tracks.
Yep.
And someone puts on, they put on their pajamas and they go to the basement and they lay some tracks down and they send it back to you. And so, so putting together this record was a joy, because under normal circumstances, getting Simon and Tony to play on something, just given their schedules,
impossible.
Yeah.
Just so hard.
They're so hard. And, and poor Simon lost his house a couple of years ago in the wildfires in California and this all stuff. And he's just home now.
Yeah.
He's just chilling out. So it was really fun to do this. And it reminded me about things like Chick Corea and integrity and doing things the right way. And I think going and doing a project like that gives me so much for when I go, because I'm starting a whole like series of ambient recordings that I'm going to be working on over the next couple of years. It's given me so much momentum to go into an entirely another mode. And it's so wonderful. It's like, I feel so lucky that I get to help people create music, and I get to create music on my own, and I get to go and sort of explore all these different things that I get to do. And I bring all of the experiences into each piece of music that I do. And it's always about standing and being of service, like inside of what my commitment is to people. So like, I hope they love the music. I mean, there's a lot of me in this jazz recording because I love it. Like, I'm emotionally connected to it.
Yep.
But can I tell you that it's a relaxation record? Maybe a track or two. I don't know.
It will be to someone.
It will. If someone is falling asleep to Metallica, I'm sorry, I'm going to do that tonight, and my wife's going to be like, "I hate you." But there's everybody's got something to do. But I think the bottom line is, as an artist, it's about being willing to take some chances and standing in your commitment to people. And like I said before, like, you hear it immediately. Yep. You hear the heart and soul immediately in the music. It's not something you've got to look for.
No. Well, Michael, where do people find out more about Myndstream and how to spell it right?
Well, there's that. Tim, I'm still back on you saying adulting. It's like I can take any noun and turn it into a verb.
That is the world we live in today.
I know.
We joke about it all the time at
I know.
home because we have a 14-year-old, and teens love to turn nouns into verbs. And
That's right.
It's hilarious.
You're just twisting the words and twisting.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Myndstream, Myndstream.com, Myndstream.com. The other thing also is that if you go to Spotify and you type in Myndstream, you'll see that we're there and we have different playlists that we put together. And if you want to get sort of the, Kellogg's, variety pack immediately, you can go check that out. You can go to Myndstream. You can check out the artists. We've got links for everything that goes to all kinds of places. This year we have some really unbelievable music coming out. There's so much I wish I could say.
Yeah, I know. You can't say it yet. You just got to sit on all of it like Joey and Friends.
Oh my God. There's so much stuff. Anyway, but yes, like the middle of this year,
it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna be beating the drum real hard. But
nice.
but so go check it out. Follow us. Go check out the playlists. There's a lot of really great stuff.
And I just want to plug the actual website itself because it is a elegant, gorgeous experience. Ooh. As a listener and as a consumer to go to Myndstream, you're like, oh. It's very congruent visually.
I can't afford this store. No. Come on, everyone, just calm down.
Oh,
I'm just
so
joking.
Funny. Yeah, it's a really elegantly designed, very congruent with everything that it is and does. When you get there, the feel, the look, the user experience of it is on point. So I would like to point everybody to Myndstream.com to go kind of enjoy that journey because it was a profound, like I remember the experience of going to that website, and we all go to hundreds of websites a day, right? And there's something different about your website that's really encouraging. Yeah, it's really well done. So kudos to the team that built it the way they did.
Yeah, we've worked really hard to create something that looks and feels like that, and we're already in the midst of, getting ready for Myndstream 2.0. So,
nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Michael, this has been a treat. Thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Tim, thank you so much for the opportunity to do this today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. I've got a couple of resources for you, which you can find in the show notes or you can listen to right here. So check it out. If you enjoy the sound of my voice and you enjoy the sound of my guitar, imagine them put together. Go to sonicrecovery.com and take your very own relaxation vacation, where I take you out of the stress of the present moment and back in time to a time when you felt happy, healthy, safe, and sober, and then walk you through that memory so you can bring back those feelings into the challenges you're facing today. So go check that out. It's at sonicrecovery.com. If you're a healthcare worker in recovery, check out the Music in Recovery Self-Care Guide for healthcare professionals that I created just for you. That's at hcp.sonicrecovery.com. And if you're a healthcare worker and you'd like more information about how to help your patients use music, you can check out the Music Medicine Guide that I created just for you at musicmedicineguide.com. Lastly, if you enjoyed the pod and you haven't done it yet, would you just take a minute to rate and review it? It really only takes about 60 seconds, believe it or not, and it would go a long way to help us make more people know just how good this pod is, particularly for healthcare workers and their stress. Thanks again. See you next time.